Welcome to a bonus episode of the Unknown Games Podcast, recording on a Sunday, which is outside the normal time because we've got a special guest here, Mr. Yahya Danboos. We're going to be talking about the Ape Escape fan remake that he was working on and eventually also put out to some great praise, great interviews from a lot of different sites. So we're pretty honored to have. I'm talking like we've never had him on the show before. Like, oh man, this is the first time Yahya has been on the show. No, everybody. This is a returning guest. If I should be, if I should make it more clear there. So it's great to have him back on the show. Yahya, how's it going, man? How are you doing these days?
Going good. Finally done with the latest remake, and now I can just rest a bit because that was like dragging on a bit. But yeah, doing good.
Hot off the heels of that remake, came out when you published it or put it out into the open. Because you've been putting out screenshots and snippets for the past couple of months, but I believe you just put it out 2 weeks ago? Would be though.
Yep.
How does it feel? How does it feel?
Well, I'm just relieved I'm done with it, to be honest, because
this man sounds like the apes took his soul for a second. What? Hold on.
Well, basically, like I was working, Pepsi Man. I finished in February. Around February, I released that.
Yeah.
And after that, right after that, like just a week or two after that, I started the Ape Escape Remake. And Pepsi Man took me only like 2 months. But the Ape Escape one dragged on a bit because I started a little bit with it in the beginning of the year, like after Pepsi Man. But then I had like to work on Monster Showdown, my other VR game I'm working on with my friend, and that I had focused more on that, and so it was just like dragging on and on and on. Like, so I just wanted to like finish it last month. Like that's it. That's my deadline, and like I just wanted to like get it done with. But I also made sure to keep it polished. Like one good thing with the like Pepsi Man, I did not. One good thing with Ape Escape is that in Pepsi Man, I just released maybe one video. It was like a funny thing, bug I had for Pepsi Man while I was developing it, but nothing really about it. And only after I finished it, I released it, the whole thing. But with Ape Escape, I started releasing a bit of like pictures and GIFs. I learned GIFs are the best thing to like grab attention.
GIFs are great.
They scroll back. People scroll past like pictures or just normal tweets, and so I started using GIFs and like videos, and I started to get a lot of attention from the fandom, like from the Ape Escape fans, and started to get to know many people there. And I found the whole hashtag Apes will escape, and
they will.
That's and so I found all these people there, and like start like they start to contact me. Like a bunch of people came up to me. Like there was one guy who makes music. He's called Turret3347, I think, and basically he made like the music. He's been making like all these musics online for Ape Escape.
Okay.
It's Turret at Turret3471. And I had initially, like just when I was still planning to start the project, I had made a whole checklist of things I need to prepare, and one of them were musics, and I wanted to use remixed. And I saw his YouTube, and so I was like, oh, okay, I'll get to that. And then he actually contacted me. He's like, hey, if you want, you can put my music. And I was like, dude, I was gonna eventually like message you and tell you, hey, can I use it? I'm like, perfect.
Once we get into it, I gotta say, like, the music is spot on. Like, if you ever played Ape Escape or anything, like it is that music. So it lends to the authenticity of when you're actually playing it, you feel like, okay, this is not only like how it used to be, but it's that updated quality and and it makes you feel like, man, I really would like to see this game remade or remaked or remastered, however you want to put it, because it's kind of in a similar situation, and we've got a lot of different hashtags, but you know, the hashtag free MVC for Marvel versus Capcom 2, which is also, you know, trapped, you know, these games that are trapped on platforms, and the only way you're going to be able to play them, unfortunately, to some extent, is to actually go back and buy that console, right? Like, you're not, there's no way, I don't believe at this moment, to really play an updated version of well, not updated, but just like Ape Escape in general. I believe this game is still on PlayStation 2 with the latest you know, the latest outing. I want to give a shout out to Hero, who's in the chat as well. Good morning. And anyone else who was on YouTube listening to us live, or if you were listening to this episode via iTunes or Google Play, you know, podcast, Spotify, any of those methods, feel free to come and look at the YouTube channel, because it's a great interview and it's going to be a great time here today. So without any further ado, let's go on and hop in just a little bit further. Yahya, for those who don't know you, because like I said, you've been on the show before for a Game of the Year special, also for a VR special that we did. Can you just introduce yourself, just a little basic intro?
Yeah, sure. My name is Yahya Danboos. I'm originally from Iraq, but I was born in Germany and lived there for a few years. And then I lived most of my life in Dubai. And just 6 years ago, I came to Japan, moved here to do video games. Before that, I had studied in Dubai in a Ubisoft gaming academy, and I worked there for a company for a while, but I just felt like I wasn't being challenged, and there was not really any in the game industry there in Dubai. So I was just like, okay, maybe it's time now to move. And I've always wanted to move to Japan, and so I came here, and it's been great. Like, had so many opportunities to meet so many developers and to collaborate and work on so many great things. That's where I met you at one of. Actually, we had like a project, and you were in it, and then we just became friends. And yeah, it's been great since, and like get so many great opportunities here. And yeah, I do since 2016. I've gotten really into VR, and so I've been working in VR companies, making, and on my free time also making VR projects. And it's just really great, like, field, because it's so new. Unlike games which are new, but they've been around for 40 years, so there's a lot of established rules and established
Right,
like
right.
systems. But with VR, it's so new, so experimental, and I love that experimental thing. Like I love this trying out things. There's this thing, like, my wife, she has a like channel for artists, and like she gets a bunch of stuff to try out, like, and make videos about them. So she got this like tour
Oh,
box.
what is
Actually,
that?
it's meant for me. I look at it and it's like, oh, it's interesting. It's actually meant for artists, because instead of them having the whole keyboard to use, they can just use this for
Oh, they can
shortcuts
just use that for the
and
shortcut. Ah.
and draw. But I look at this and I'm like, bro, I could make a game with this. Like, this is like
This man saw
console.
this. This is like, oh man, you might be one of the people who are like, you know what? Can I finish this roll of Dark Souls, like this run of Dark Souls on a Guitar Hero controller?
Yes.
I believe that this works. And if I could put like a pizza controller together, we might just have the best like controller ever to play this game in the most interesting way.
Well, for me, it's like not I want to play a game with this, but I'm like, I want to make a game with this, because like the controls, like you have the spin thing, pressing another spin thing. There's a scroll thing, like buttons. And there's like all these interesting things you can do it. So I'm like, such a cool like idea. So I'm just having it here on my desk now. Like it's from my wife, but I'm just having here like just thinking like, what kind of game could I make? Like we could make like spaceship where you have to like press all these buttons, or like maybe like you have like this.
There was an
Yeah.
old toy. I don't know if you had it when you were growing up too, but in the U.S. it was like Bop It.
Yes, Bop It.
Yeah. Bop It. You got to make something with the Bop It controller. Like Bop It as a controller. Look that up. Bop It, was it Bop It, Squeeze It, Pull It, and I think there's like Twist It. I think those were the four
Twisted.
that they eventually all had. Or a Simon Says Cube. One of the two. Like one. Just hook one of those up.
I think those people have already made something with them, but yeah, we'll see. By the way, your thing that's loading on Discord is still showing on the feed. So if you just
it is on the feed. I wonder why it's.
Just remove your camera.
Just my camera. Okay, there we go. Okay. I hope when I say turn off camera. Okay, there we go.
Okay, all good. Yeah.
This man saving the stream already. Saving it. And then I do want to give you a chance. You did mention that your wife is an artist. If you want to go ahead and plug her, you can go ahead and do that for her YouTube if you want to right now. Just or we can wait to the end of the show, whichever one you want to do. I'm always about
Oh
helping
yeah, you can
everybody.
just look up Pluvius and you'll find her YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. She's got like 150,000 subs. No big deal.
No big
I'm
deal.
catching up. I'm
No,
still at just 3K.
no big deal. Just still, I type in just a search, a little bit of PLU into YouTube, and YouTube's like, hey, I already know what you're talking about. That level, just that level. I'm going to put that in the chat really quick for any aspiring artists out there. Go ahead and check his wife's channel out. Great artist. You get some tips and also probably some great art on there to follow and get, artists. We learn from each other. So go ahead and check her channel out as well. Moving on. So that's a little bit about Yahya. Like I said, we've known each other for, I guess, it's been 6 years now, 5-6 years. It's kind of crazy off and on. Our paths keep crossing. But, what's always impressed me about Yahya is man's always been about challenge, and he said it himself. When the challenge wasn't enough in one country, man flew out and said, I got to chase the dreams in the next one. So when we're talking about this Ape Escape remake, when did you first, you said you went into it after Pepsi Man, but when did you actually start thinking like, hey, I want to do an Ape Escape remake? Because this series has, for people who don't know, has been around since 1999. It's one of those original PlayStation series that was really used to showcase the DualShock controller. So the way that you play Ape Escape is you have, I think your right analog stick controls your net, and essentially you flick up on it to catch the apes, and the apes are running around. It's literally Ape Escape. They've escaped from, I guess, a zoo. Sometimes it's like you feel like they're alien.
They escape time.
They escape time. Oh gosh.
Yes, they were in a laboratory being tested on, and they escaped to like the past, and you're going back in time to get them.
So that's the premise. That's the basic premise of the game. It's very simple, and it came from I believe Sony's Japan studio, which was known. And I don't want to say was. We'll still say is known for making unique, wonderful games. But we're gonna shorten the games S to a game.
Well, they're kind of closing down.
Yeah.
So that's a whole thing.
Yeah. Rebranded, remarketed. But, that's one of the things that Sony was really known for. And we'll get into that a little bit later, too, because we kind of lost that crazy spark in Sony games. And we've gotten a lot of huge but a lot of huge AAA big budget titles. But where are those games like Ape Escape? Where are those games? Even like a Shadow of the Colossus, any of those wonderful games, Gravity Days, all those things that came out of their Japan studio. I think there's a calling for those games, and this is one of them, Ape Escape. So yeah, when did you come up with this idea? Like, when did it first come to your mind? Like, I think I want to do an Ape Escape remake. Like, Pepsi Man, and then Ape Escape. What was the thought process?
So for me, it's basically like last year I started to think about the whole like YouTube stuff, and like I want to do something like interesting. So I had a bunch of ideas going back and forth. One idea was actually I want to make the idea was like mixing two games together, and I made a whole list of what kind of games I could mix together. Mm-hmm. And one idea I stopped I stuck on was mixing what's it called, Brothers: A Tale of Two, I think.
The game where you played two people but with one analog stick each. Yep.
And Zelda, like the top-down version ones. And I actually ended up spending 2 months making that. And I was gonna make like a whole video of like explaining how I made it, and then showing the final thing. And I was like, and it took too long, and I was like, this is just the first video. I don't want to put so much on it. So that's actually why I started like my first 2 videos on the channel is just like 2-minute tutorials, because I just want to get into that rhythm of making videos and just like get into it. Right. And then after I was done with those, I was like, okay, I want to do something cool. And like, I've done a few personal projects where I've kind of remade certain stuff. Like I've had like a fun like bunch of VR remakes I did just for fun. Like I had like Monster Hunters like cooking VR game, and I had like Luigi's Mansion VR game, just like just trying out what you can do. That's actually where my game came from, like the original idea for the Monster Reapers. which is now called Monster Showdown. But then eventually it turned to a shooting game and stuff. Anyways, VR shooting. But yeah. So I thought, what if I do a remake, like make it. Oh yeah, one big inspiration were those demakes I find on YouTube, which take new games like Uncharted, for example, or like Overwatch or something, and they make it into look like a PS1 game, and those were cool. But I'm not so good at making those pixel kind of games. So I was like, let me do the opposite: take a PS1 game, make it into a remake, like a PS5 game. And so I made a list of games of like potential good games for PlayStation 1 and also N64 games. Didn't start with N64, even though that was my favorite console, but because like I don't know, Nintendo might just come and like, nope.
Oh, yeah, we've seen that in the past. Nintendo like, hey,
yes.
We love this fan remake, but you gotta take it down for a little bit.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, let me look for something not too popular where I would just get like drowned in the search engine, but also not too obscure where no one would look for it. So in that middle sweet spot, I found a bunch of games. One of them was Pepsi Man. Another one was Ape Escape, where it's like it's been long enough where there hasn't been any game, but there's still a big fan base, and also like I'd love to just like re-envision that game. When I was a kid, like I had a friend, I would go over to his house, always play games with him, and one of the games he had was what was it called?
Was Ape Escape?
That, but like Pumped and Primed, Ape Escape Pumped and Primed, and it was basically at the time I thought it was like Ape Escape 4, and I was like, oh, that's cool because you can have 4 players. I don't know, I was a kid, and I was surprised when later Ape Escape 3 came out, and I was like, oh, I thought that was for Ape Escape 4. But yeah, basically it's like a Mario Party kind of style, and you just like you play 4 players with all these mini games, and you play with the monkeys, you play with like the characters, and it's pretty fun game, really fun. That's how I. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say like like you mentioned that it was a party game as well. That's actually something I didn't know, that they had a party game in the series. I always thought it was just like the mainline stuff, but there's Ape Escape 1, 2, Ape Escape on the Loose, Ape Escape 3, and then we have the spin-off titles. Of course, I mean some of those being on the PlayStation Portable. I guess most of them being on PSP. And then there's the party titles, like you mentioned, with Pumped and Primed, all the way up to even like iToy. And we were saying, there's some creative stuff that Sony was doing.
They had an anime here in Japan, a full length, like each episode 20 minutes, I think.
The apes were in Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater, Monster Rancher 4. Of course, everybody's golf. That's a Sony property, but where did they go?
They had this awesome collaboration. I initially played Metal Gear Solid 3, and you had this whole like mission where they're taking over this whole base, and I think there was 3 missions, and you have to like go shoot them, like just tranquilizer, and then catch them, and Snake would do the same voice as like Spike or all the other like characters, and you'd be like, gotcha, and it's great. And then also the cool thing is, on the other side, when Ape Escape, I think 3 came out, or was it 2, they had a whole game mode where you play as a monkey looking like Snake, and he was playing like Snake Eater, like, and at the end there's a cutscene where Snake talks to the monkey, and they like give like a salute.
They just give a salute, and it's like, thank you for your service. Thank you so much. It's like
amazing when they had these awesome collaborations back in the days. Now it's just too difficult. But yeah, like the franchise, like PlayStation had like Spyro's, Crash, and like a bunch of unofficial icon like characters, but they were not officially PlayStation. They actually had games on the other consoles.
Right.
But they had Ape Escape, and it's looking through it, like in Japan they did actually use it a lot to promote, but I don't know why it just went away. Like they brought Sackboy, but Sackboy is not so iconic. He's just like a sack and a boy, and that's it.
Sackboy is just a sack and a boy. I got a Sackboy back there. Don't disrespect Sackboy. I was a huge Sackboy fan. I thought Little Big
I
Planet,
am too.
you know,
I
as
love
a
Living End. As a
yeah,
game developer, like that's how I started. Like with many of the stuff, like creative levels, I did that with that game. But it's just not an iconic game. Like there's no,
right,
oh, I
right,
love the campaign of like Sackboy. Like no, there's no such thing. Like he's not like Mario.
right. Sorry, I had to readjust the camera for a second. I was like, what is this? What just happened? I'm trying to get the game up on the feed really quickly. Sorry about that. But yeah, I mean, like it is one of those things where Sackboy is, Sackboy's iconic because Sackboy was made to be iconic, right? They pushed Little Big Planet so much to try to get that traction. But at the same time, there really was still they had all these mascots in the background. Some of them, like we said on other consoles, Gex. I always remember Gex being around, but no one, we're not gonna be like, let's go with Gex. But there was always Spyro and there was always Crash and, but Ape Escape was theirs. Ape Escape was their own, their babies, right? So it's one of those things where we can't say that they didn't try because we just listed a bunch of titles, but through PSP. Not PS3. Even Loco Roco got a remaster or a remaster. I can't really remember. I guess on PS3.
Yeah, remaster.
Yeah,
It was like
even
fully HD, 4K.
even Loco Roco, even Patapone, which I gotta say,
Yes.
I love those. I love both of those games. Huge Patapone fan, but
Dude,
those
even
were on PSP.
Proper the Rapper.
Yeah, even Proper the Rapper got brought back, and even one of their really older games, I think they brought it back on one of their showcases, not as a remake, but like, hey, we're having this game be downloadable again. It's coming back, and I can't remember. It was kind of a rhythm, kind of old rhythm game for PlayStation. Very one of those older classic games for sure. I wish
They
I
had
could.
Medieval. Medieval was remade from PS1 to PS4.
Yes, it was. It was. That was also remade. So yeah, why not
Bizarre.
Why
It's
not?
like they're choosing everything around Ape Escape. Like it's come on. And actually, but they did do something, which I think they were trying to test the waters. Possibly, they re-released on PlayStation 4 digitally Ape Escape 1. No, just 2. I think the PlayStation 2 version.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Bizarre thing. Only in US and Europe, but not Japan.
Well, but not in Japan. That's really strange.
That's odd.
They have they had some decisions, I guess, that they were having to make. I'm not really sure why. So sometimes we had you just question Sony and go like, but why Sony? But why? But why? Um, but yeah, we're gonna look at the Ape Escape. Just a disclaimer, of course, the following is made in tribute to the game Ape Escape. Any and all assets are owned by their original full right copyright owners, and the brand and the rights and the characters belong to Sony Computer Entertainment Incorporated. Yeah, we gotta get that out. But I mean, so we got this Ape Escape remake. The apes are always loving. They're running. Gosh, they're running animations is it's so funny. But so we have the remake, and I guess we can kind of go a little bit into it. What were some of the I want to say challenges when it came to doing this remake? I know you talked about the music, but what were some of the other challenges?
Well, the biggest challenge is making the character, like just his movement and stuff. He had all these like abilities. Like that took a bit of time, like his crawling, climbing, jumping. That's actually the first time I'm doing like third person like platformer character, programming him,
Mm-hmm.
and it was really fun. Like definitely my next game is gonna be a third person like platformer style kind of game. Like I love how you can just jump, double jump, and like do all these moves. Such a cool feeling, and like you could do so much with it. No wonder like there's Mario like being made over and over
Over and
again.
over.
Much
There's
better
something
games.
about the feel about where you can just, you land those jumps or you jump the way you want to jump, and that timing, connecting A to B when you're jumping on platforms, even, how you see you're jumping on the trees and everything,
Yeah,
that kind of momentum you get, there is a rush about it.
totally. Yeah, totally.
And so, you have two different. I don't want to call them weapons because they're not weapons. You don't. But I don't. What is the light sword actually called? So you hit the. You can kind of
It's a
weaken them with
stunt
the sword,
club.
stun
It's a
club.
stunt club.
with the stun club
and the time net.
And
the
then
stun club
capturing.
is like to stun them, and then the time net is called time net because you're sending them back in time, back to the future where they came from.
Which I'm just kind of thinking about this. Good old Pokemon. It's good old, like it just reminded me about Pokemon. Which these games did come out not too. Dare I say, maybe even Pokemon came out like a little bit before, but I don't want to say that it was one of those things where this was influenced by Pokemon. Who knows? But definitely catching the apes, and then of course that classic animation where it's just the camera spins. That's one of those things I remember doing because I played the series on PlayStation Portable the first time for myself, and it was just one of those things like, oh, this game is actually kind of a lot of fun, So why do you think Sony hasn't gone back and made, like, why do you think they haven't? We've brought up a bunch of games that they have, and even these PC ports now they're doing for their bigger games. They definitely have the budget.
It's bizarre. Like, lower games have gotten remakes, better games have gotten remakes. This is just in the middle where it's like, why not this one? Why? I don't think it's a licensing thing because I don't see really anything licensed in these games. And I'm pretty sure it's owned by them fully. Like, the other day, I remember someone posted, like, PlayStation was showing all their studios and all the franchises involved with them. And so they showed, like, Little Big Planet, they showed all these different games, and no Ape Escape. Why? It's bizarre. I don't understand. I don't get it. It's either they're working on something and it's just been getting delayed, or I don't know, because like they had the 20th anniversary came and went, and before the 20th anniversary, they had like made a Twitter account, or they've been preparing or changing some pictures on it, and then just came and went, like nothing.
Very much. I mean, it very well could have been that they were working on something, and then, as we were kind of mentioning before, the new direction with Sony and how Japan Studio has kind of been, they haven't been shuttered; they've been repurposed. Is the better way of putting it, and the biggest thing to come out of them is Team Asobi, which is focusing mainly on Astrobot. They do other things to support other studios, but in terms of IPs and what they're making, that's the only thing we know. Like that's and honestly, this would be a game that's up their alley. Astrobot is even with the VR roots and the PS5, which was just an honor to just kind of like an homage to going down PlayStation history. That was a 3D platformer. That's pretty much this, So I feel like
actually in the playroom on the PlayStation 5, they had teased Ape Escape. Like there was a character with that light on their head, and yeah, nothing came out of that.
It's like we're so close. So if this is the case, like, what do you think it's going to take to make Sony do something? What do you think it's going to take to get this iconic franchise revitalized and also remade? Like, how can we get this in Sony's,
Well, what people can do first and foremost is just go buy the PlayStation 4 like PS2 remaster. It's not a remaster; it's just a port from the digital store. That, like always, not you vote with your wallet. You can just do that, and they'll see the numbers. Other than that, there's the hashtag for people. But for them, we'll encourage them. I mean, everything's on money. I mean, for them lately, they've been pushing a lot on third-person games, and this is a third-person game. And also, the thing with Ape Escape, the first one, or I think also the third one, yeah, every time they were like using some new hardware from the PlayStation and trying to find new interesting ways to use it. Like they did cool stuff with like the PSP as well, where like you would have your screen on the PSP. Let's just say this is a PSP, and basically you could play on Ape Escape Academy. It was called Ape Escape Academy. And there's a game, especially a bunch of like mini games you play, and you play it yourself, or you can twist it and like this, and for me one side and the other person from another side, 2 players on one PSP. I haven't seen other PSP games. Yes, that's amazing.
That's actually amazing.
Cool stuff. Yes,
I did not know that they split a PSP screen. Like, I mean, and we've seen this concept. Obviously, it's called the Nintendo Switch now.
Yes.
become a full-blown console. But that
yeah. And now with the the DualSense, so many new cool stuff you could do with it. If only they had a game to show it with, like. And the guys who made Ape Escape made the Playroom, which was supposed to be the game to like present the whole DualSense thing and technologies. But like, it would be so great to do all these like new things. Maybe like you can use the touchpad, you can use the whole like trigger thing, and like all those like new mechanics in the controller, just to make new stuff and like innovate it with Ape Escape again.
I mean, you can already see a couple of ideas. Like, of course, we got the adaptive triggers, and that's one of the things they love to push. But, like, you can see that with the Rumble being even better, like, capturing the apes could be a little bit more difficult, or in terms of, like, you really feel them trying to escape from the net, or you know, when you're using the stun or something, like you said, you can swipe. Just, there's a whole different controls that are available for the devs to kind of showcase the game and also help reinvent it a little bit, you know, bring it into the current, and then people will be like, if they need to put a story with it, if Sony's just afraid of, hey, we do third-person narrative games, put a narrative to it. Sony, put a narrative. Yeah. It doesn't have to be, we ain't got to write epic Emmy Oscar-winning stuff for this, but make it a fun game. We've seen with Guardians of the Galaxy that just came out. That game is just a game. And I feel like that's what people are afraid to kind of make sometimes, is a game that is a game. Shooty, do this, do that, but have the dialogue and have everything around it be fun and engaging. And I feel like Ape Escape is perfect for, hey, you're not going to go out in real life and catch any apes. I mean, unless that's your job or something. But, it just is like, hey, I'm having fun with this game. I'm having fun. And I feel like this is a franchise that exudes that, you know?
Yeah. And actually what might be happening, maybe Bluepoint is working on a bunch of like remakes, and they made like Demon Souls, they made Shadow of the Colossus for PS4. Mm-hmm. So maybe Ape Escape, I don't know.
Maybe. I feel like if so, they could do it. I feel like, hey, if anyone's doing it, it's Bluepoint, and if they're doing it, I feel like they can do it hopefully relatively quickly. We know one of them is already done, like whatever. Well, I guess the PC port for Bloodborne is rumored to already be done, but if it is an Ape Escape, then I feel like that's also like something that they might have they can crank out. Who knows?
Yeah.
But
I mean, who was the studio that made Medieval, the remake? I wonder, like, if that was made by Gorilla Cambridge. Gorilla Games. Okay.
Wow.
Gorilla Cambridge. Okay.
It's when you go, oh, Gorilla. Okay.
Were they the original ones? Oh, they were the original.
They were the original.
Developers. Okay. Well, what about the PS4 port? Was that made by Gorilla? Nope. Called by Other Ocean Emeryville. Okay. So what might be the thing is that they don't have anyone who's working on it. Like, they don't want to work internally on a remake.
Right.
And so the whole case with Bluepoint is they were taking care of remakes, not PlayStation themselves.
Exactly.
Didn't Bluepoint actually buy them recently?
Yeah. So Sony did acquire, Bluepoint.
Yeah. So they're probably focusing on more like bigger IPs, or I don't know, like, yeah. So like, maybe if a company approaches them and they're like, hey, we have this, how about we remake it? It's much easier than like a company approaching Sony saying, hey, we'll make a new game. But it's like, hey, we'll just remake this.
We'll remake your... That does make a lot of sense. And kind of leading out of this, how would you sell the idea to Sony for a remake, or to your friends, anyone? Like, how would you sell the idea?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. How would you sell Crash to people? Like it's a platformer, it's a bandicoot running around. Like, you got to be a fan to play it. Like, I don't know. Yeah. New, like, Spyro is super fun. Like, that's easy to sell. You're a dragon, you're running around, you're flying, burning. Super fun, super simple game. Yeah, and you get the whole 3 trilogy right now. Ape Escape. Just
apes have escaped,
go
and
hunting apes. Yeah.
and you go hunting. I mean, I feel like the draw of Ape Escape is something similar to those older games, with Crash. Banking on the kind of time idea and having all the characters come back. I played Crash 4. I forgot it's Crash in Time. I forgot what it's actually called, but I feel like, with the fact that these apes are loose in time, you can go anywhere. There's no bounds. You can have any settings, and that's one of the strong points that they can definitely.
Oh, do you mean about new game? No, I was
about a
talking
new
about
game.
remake.
Oh, remake. Okay.
A new game. Well, initially, before doing a new game, which will take, I think, more resources, they'll probably just can do a remake. And
just straight
I mean,
remake.
the cool thing is they back in those days they were experimenting so many like things. Like in the second game, they added a car, like a more open kind of cities, and like the third game as well, I think. And so like there's many things they could do, like many interesting stuff. They could just improve the controls a bit because it was quite innovative, but some people was a bit difficult for them to play the first game.
Mm-hmm.
And so they could put like I think they did a similar thing maybe with Shadow of the Colossus where they had like more improved controls.
Improved control schemes. Yeah.
Yeah, so they could have like both people who want to try it or get challenged, or like people who just want to play. And yeah, it's just a fun game, quick fun game. I mean, they made Papa the Rapper. Come on, what was he
I
called?
mean,
Papa
the Rapper has. I think people, what for better, for better or worse, that game has a spot in, I would say, kind of PlayStation history or just history in gaming, and with those iconic characters. But like we said, these apes are iconic. If you put them in front of somebody, someone's gonna recognize them or be like, "I remember that from my childhood or something." I
Absolutely,
remember something.
so iconic, so iconic. You wouldn't put in like what was that PSP game we just mentioned earlier?
The party.
No, the other ones, not Ape Escape. The ones that were got remade.
Loco Roco or Patapon.
Patapon, like they're very small games. They have some cult following, but like not as iconic. You wouldn't show them to anyone. It's like, oh yeah, that's like those guys. No.
Yeah,
But the
no one
monkeys,
remembers the
the
blob
apes.
from them.
Come on.
And maybe that's just something we might have to see Sony kind of do a pivot shift some way for them to kind of go back to some of their older IPs. I'm sure there's a couple more that they might have that they haven't really that have been shuttered. I know Twisted Metal is a game that people kind of either love or hate, but it's a known name. It's a known thing, right?
It got a chance. Twisted Metal already got a chance on PS3 for the remake, and it wasn't good, and people just moved on. That's it. They had a chance. We'll try again in a few years.
It did. It did. But what I'm saying is that it is one of those older PlayStation franchises that did get a shot, at a time when I didn't think that after Twisted Metal, I guess it was Twisted Metal Black, I was like, okay, people played it. It was fun or whatever. And Sony was really, and I think that was the crux. Sony was looking for a multiplayer game online, right? They were looking for something. So Sony, what it might come down to as well is Sony might just have to be looking for this kind of game specifically.
Yes.
And like you said, an outside developer coming in and saying, hey, we actually love this game. We would love to remake it for you. We would love to do this. That could be, I feel like that would be the push. I feel like that could actually be one of the things. So before we kind of head on out and close the show, where can people download the remake, and also where can people follow you on social media?
They can get the download from itch.io. It's on, you can just search for Ape Escape Remake and it should show up. And they can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube as Yahya Danboos. And yeah, those are my plugs.
There we go. So go ahead and look it up on itch.io for the Ape Escape Remake. You'll be able to find it. Fan game. It's there. Let me put the link into the chat as well. Number one, let me put that into the chat. And of course, you can also follow Yahya on his socials at Yahya Danboos. That is YAHYADANBOOS on Twitter, Instagram, and I believe any other place, YouTube as well. You can just pop that in. Like you said, it's universal. Good branding right there. Good branding. the universal brand right there. So here's the link in the chat for the remake. Go ahead and download that, and then of course, if you want to follow him on Twitter, and that'll lead to everything else, the YouTube as well, which I did put in the chat earlier. Go ahead and follow him there. And then, how can you support the Ape Escape remake, the movement?
Yeah,
I know we talked about it before, but
yeah, go. I mean, you can support with the hashtag if you don't want many. You don't want any. You don't want to shelf any money. What do you say? How do you say it? Yeah, if you don't want to pay anything, you can just use the hashtag. Try to follow the. I can shout out the person who actually created the hashtag. He's been pushing the whole thing constantly. He's called at Spectre _ Kuta with a W. With a double U, yeah, and yeah, he's been doing this whole campaign with the Ape Escape and trying to revive it, and yeah, you can follow him and yeah, keep retweeting, pushing Sony to bring it back. And if you want to support financially and directly to Sony, you can buy the port on PlayStation 4 digitally. It's available in the US, Europe, everywhere except Japan. You can get it there for your PS4, the Ape Escape 2. And yeah, that will show them directly. Like if they see a spike in those sales, they're like, oh, okay, right, that's something to consider.
Put it back on the radar. Put it back on their radar. So yeah, definitely go ahead and support. And if you haven't played it, go ahead and give the game a shot. I mean, it's a fun little. You'll have a fun time. Even if it's not for you, you'll get a couple laughs out of it. But you'll see like, oh, okay, maybe it's not for me, but I can give it to someone else. I hope someone else can play it and get the game out to other people, because it is a fun series and something that kids also would love. Kids love crazy stuff.
Yeah,
all the kids are
it could totally bring in a new audience that were born after Ape Escape. That's the whole thing. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's gonna do it for this week's episode. Well, this is a bonus episode. This isn't. this is a bonus episode. But so glad to have Yahya on the show. I know he's been wanting to come back, and it was a perfect opportunity to get him back on the show.
Yeah, totally. And I can't wait for next time, because I'm now working on the next game. This time it's not going to be a remake. It's I'm going to start with my own project, and it's going to be a classical music inspired video game. It's going to be a mix of Journey kind of style and Shadow of the Colossal, but heavy focus on classical music. My love for classical music. So I'll start tweeting about that next year.
Snap! We can't wait for that. And yeah, like you said, go ahead, follow him. You can also follow us on Instagram and also Twitch at I haven't done this in so long. UTP_cast. I don't ever talk about Instagram. It's like the shadow child. But now you can upload on Instagram from your PC. So we'll be getting back on.
Oh, you can? Finally.
Yes. Yeah. Right. What? Yes. Finally. They like when you log on Instagram, it'll have like a little plus that says, "Oh, you can now upload from your PC." I'm like, finally. This is the only thing that was. I hated emailing like Google Driving stuff to myself.
You can. Oh, finally, yes.
On my phone. It's a great platform if you're taking photos and doing things natively and no editing. But when you have to edit, or when you're trying to make something or put up a video you screen captured from your PC, it is annoying. I'm not gonna lie. It's like an extra hassle, and you need a little bit of extra software. So I'm glad that barrier is finally removed. TikTok does the same thing.
Finally.
So maybe that was a push for them. So yeah, go ahead and follow us there, and also make sure to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel. We're looking for that number 50, and hopefully to 100. Where baby steps. It's all about those baby steps.
Yep.
There we go. So we'll catch you all next time for episode. I believe it'll be 107 of the No Games podcast coming out this week, and who knows what we'll be talking about. You just have to come in and find out. That's a horrible plug. Thanks, Yahya, for being on the show, and we'll catch you all later. Take it easy, everybody.